All right, today we're diving into one of the most famous and, honestly, truly shocking psychological experiments ever done. It's a study from the 1970s that basically turned the entire world of psychiatry on its head by asking one simple, kind of terrifying question.
So, it all kicked off with this. Could a perfectly sane, healthy person get themselves admitted to a psychiatric hospital with just one single complaint? And maybe even more important, once they were inside, would anyone at all, be able to tell they were faking?
So back in the early 70s, a Stanford psychologist, a guy named David Rosenhan, decided to put the entire system to the test. What he really wanted to figure out was whether the experts, the psychiatrists, the nurses, could actually tell the difference between someone who was sane and someone who wasn't, especially once that initial diagnosis was made.
To pull this off, he got together a group of 8 totally mentally healthy volunteers. And it was a pretty diverse crew. We're talking a grad student, a painter, a pediatrician, and even another psychiatrist. Their whole mission was to go undercover as what the study called pseudo-patients. Okay, now get this. The one and only symptom they were told to report was this. They went to different hospitals and just said they were hearing voices. That's it. And when the doctors asked, well, what do the voices say? Their answer was always the same. One of these 3 simple words: thud, empty, or hollow. That was literally it. Everything else they talked about, their lives, their relationships, was completely true. And you know what? That one super vague complaint, it was enough. All 8 of them got admitted to 12 different psychiatric hospitals all across the country. But see, getting in was just the beginning. The real test was about to start.
The moment they walked through those hospital doors, boom, the act was over. The pseudo-patients immediately stopped pretending to have any symptoms at all. No more voices, nothing. They just acted completely, totally normal, like their usual selves. So now, their whole mission was just to convince the staff they were sane enough to get out. And this is where things get really wild, because it shows the core finding of the whole experiment. It's like once that label of mentally ill was stuck on them, every single normal thing they did was seen as a symptom. They were polite and cooperative, but their charts said they had a severe mental illness. They even took notes for the study, right out in the open, and the nurses wrote in the logs that the patient engages in writing behavior, as if that was proof of their illness. Their sanity had just become invisible.
And we're not talking about a quick in and out trip here. Getting out was incredibly hard. The shortest stay was 7 days, the longest was 52 days. I mean, can you imagine? One of the volunteers was trapped in there for nearly 2 months, even though he was acting perfectly sane the whole time. So once all 8 of the volunteers finally got released, Rosenhan collected all the data. And the results from this first part of the experiment, well, they were just jaw-dropping.
So get this, across all 12 of those hospitals, how many times do you think a single staff member, a doctor, a nurse, anyone, correctly identified one of the volunteers as a fake? The answer is 0, not 1. What's really funny is that some of the actual patients came up to them and were like, "You're not crazy, you're a journalist, right?" But the trained professionals? Nope, not a single one.
Yeah, you can probably guess what happened next. When the study finally got published, it was like a bombshell dropped on the entire medical community. It was a massive challenge to the idea that psychiatric diagnosis was reliable at all.
Oh, and the backlash was huge. A lot of hospitals were really angry and defensive. But there was this one, really well-known teaching hospital that was especially furious. They were basically saying, "No way, not us, our doctors would never fall for that."
And so they threw down the gauntlet. They issued a direct challenge to Rosenhan saying, all right, game on. For the next few months, send us your pseudo-patients. Send as many as you want. We're ready for you. We will spot every single one.
And Rosenhan? He was like, okay, you're on. So for the next 3 months, the staff at this hospital was on super high alert. They were checking out every single person who walked in the door, just waiting to catch these imposters they were so sure were coming their way.
So 3 months go by. And the hospital, they were feeling pretty good about themselves. They proudly sent their data back to Rosenhan, super confident they had aced the test. So let's see what they found. Out of 193 new patients that came in during that time, the staff pointed to 41 of them and said, "Yep, those are your fakes. We caught them." And that's not all. On top of those 41, they also flagged another 42 patients as being really suspicious. So by their count, they had caught something like 83 of Rosenhan's fakers.
I mean, that sounds pretty impressive, right? They felt like they'd proven their point. But here it comes,
The crucial question, the final absolutely mind-blowing twist to this whole story. How many fake patients had Rosenhan actually sent to that hospital?
That's right. 0. Zilch. Nada. He hadn't sent a single one. The hospital, in their rush to find the fakes, had ended up identifying dozens of their own real patients as imposters.
And this is the whole point of the story, right? The experiment showed two completely opposite but equally dangerous types of mistakes. In the first part, the staff made a sane person look insane. They couldn't see the sanity that was right in front of them. In the second part, they made an insane person look sane, or at least like they were faking it. They saw fakes that weren't even there. It just proves that their judgment was totally clouded by what they expected to see.
So what are we left with? It's this incredibly powerful question we have to ask ourselves. The Rosenhan experiment is just this stark, unforgettable reminder of how powerful labels can be. Once someone is labeled, whether it's insane or faker, it completely changes how we see every single thing they do. It really makes you stop and think, right? In our own lives, how often do the labels we put on other people or even on ourselves end up creating the reality we see?